It's the evening on the 14th of August 2008. Turkish Airlines is getting ready for its direct flight TK1123 from Istanbul to Lagos. On board the Airbus A310 are 196 passengers and crew. Later that evening, Turkish 1123 departs Istanbul. The departure is non-eventful, with no concerns reported by the pilots. All the systems in the aircraft are working as per usual. In the west of Africa, in Bamako, Mali, Kenya Airways Flight KQ513, a Boeing 737-700, is planning its return journey back to Nairobi, Kenya. This is a multi-stopover journey, starting in Dakar, onwards to Mali, and then back to Kenya. It's late evening in Mali, where KQ513 has just flown in its first leg from Senegal, and is now ready for departure on its final leg to Kenya. KQ513 has an experienced flight crew on today's flight. Both the captain and co-pilot have several thousand flying hours between them on the 737 aircraft type. Sitting on the left is Captain Salim, and on his right is First Officer John, both who are about to become pivotal in this story. Later that evening, KQ513 departs Bamako. This is also a non-eventful takeoff, and shortly after, KQ513 is at cruising altitude on its journey back to Kenya. About an hour after KQ513's takeoff from Bamako, Turkish Airlines TK1123 has flown its 7-hour journey from Istanbul and is on final approach for landing in Lagos. During their final approach, for unknown reasons, the crew of TK1123 decides to abort their landing by carrying out a go-around and come back in for a second landing attempt. This procedure, known as a go-around, is a fairly common practice in commercial flights and is usually undertaken when it is deemed unsafe to land. Following the go-around, TK1123 climbs altitude once again and then heads south towards the coast of Lagos, and then further down onto the Atlantic Ocean. Although the go-around is a usual occurrence, TK1123's situation is about to become unusual. In the cockpit of TK1123, the pilots are relying on their navigation instruments to fly the aircraft. The navigation display can indicate the nearby airports and can be configured to show the routing required to fly towards these airports. Most importantly, in night conditions where visual flying is not recommended. Unfortunately, just a few minutes after the go-around, the navigation systems have failed. The crew of TK1123 then recall that there are airports of Cotonou, Lome, and Accra, all within 400 kilometers of Lagos. Hence, they decide to turn west, hoping to find one of these airports visually and attempt an emergency landing. Whilst Turkish 1123 is searching for an airport to land at, KQ513 has now reached the northwest boundary of Burkina Faso and Ghana. Both the aircraft have tuned into the Accra Tower's frequency. The air traffic control and the two aircraft can now speak with each other. This also allows any other aircraft flying on the same frequency to listen in to Turkish 1123's conversations. On the frequency, Turkish 1123 can be heard asking for help. However, other aircraft in the region seem to also be communicating with the air traffic control, and this is preventing Turkish 1123 from getting the help they need. Hearing this, Captain Salim of KQ513 asks everyone on the frequency to maintain silence, and to leave it open, allowing Turkish to communicate effortlessly. Turkish 1123 then states that following a go-around in Lagos, they had lost their navigation instruments and had turned west along the coast to locate an airport. However, upon being further confused about their location, they had descended back down to 2,000 feet to try and locate a runway. KQ513 then asks Turkish for the fuel remaining, to which Turkish 1123 says, 30 minutes of fuel. KQ513 makes a mental note that as it is 10 minutes past 10 p.m., Turkish will run out of fuel at 40 minutes past the hour. Captain Virji then suggests to Accra to have the airport fire up flares, knowing that a military base is close by the airport. He suggests that doing so would allow TK1123 to see them. A few minutes later, Turkish 1123 asks what happened to the flares and comments saying that they only saw ships around them. The crew of KQ513 are confused about the whereabouts of Turkish. Captain Salim is concerned that his suggestions might distract or mislead them. The information that Turkish 1123 saw ships around them and upon request confirmed to have seen water convinces Captain Virji that Turkish 1123 must have been south of the coast. He then suggests to Turkish 1123 to turn north using their standby compass and that they should see the lights of the coastline soon. Turkish 1123 acknowledges and starts turning north. When all navigation systems fail, a standby compass is still available. On the Airbus A310, this standby compass is located in the middle of the overhead instrument panel. Turkish then acknowledges that they are turning north. KQ513 then asks TK1123 to try using the ADF. The ADF is an automatic direction finder. It's an instrument that can display the relative direction of a runway to the aircraft. Unfortunately, this has also failed. Due to the dark conditions and a navigation system failure, the crew of Turkish 1123 are likely disoriented and completely lost. They are now relying on KQ513 to help them find an airport. First Officer John then checks his clock and realizes that Turkish would only have about 10 minutes of fuel remaining. To this, Turkish gets back confirming the situation. Captain Salim then suggests to Turkish that they should prepare for ditching, in close proximity to the ships that they had seen before they ran out of fuel. This way, they would be better off with the ships being able to provide immediate assistance, and thus had a higher chance of the passengers surviving. The time is now rapidly approaching 40 minutes past the hour. Just then, Turkish comes on the frequency and states that they see lights. Turkish then asks for the runway lights at Accra to be switched on and off to help them spot the airport. However, they are unable to see the runway. A few seconds later, Turkish comes back on the frequency stating that they have just spotted a runway. Accra Tower then permits Turkish to land immediately, and the frequency is kept quiet to prevent distracting Turkish 1123. TK1123 is lucky this time. Shortly after, they manage to descend and land on a runway that they believe is in Accra. A few seconds later, KQ513 asks, "Have you landed?" To which they immediately receive a response confirming the landing. KQ513 then transmits a message to Accra Tower, confirming. The air traffic controllers at Accra are confused, as they have not seen any Turkish Airlines plane landed. A while later, Accra Tower gets back, confirming that Turkish Airlines has actually landed in Lom and not in Accra. This is because after losing their navigation equipment and turning west along the coast, Turkish 1123 turned north and found the runway of Lom and not Accra as they had thought. As a result, they ended up 170 kilometers away from where they expected to be landing. Either way, Turkish 1123 is lucky to have received the help from KQ513 in locating a runway.